Today is Monday, June 23rd, 2025, and this is Spring Office Hours, Season 4, Episode 17, Spring AI and Google Gemini Beyond the Demo. My name is Dan Vega, Spring Developer Advocate at Broadcom. My good friend Deshaun is off in Kenya this week, so I brought on another good friend of mine, Dan Dobrin, for the Dan Show today. Dan, how you doing?
Great. Dan, the other Dan.
You are not the other Dan.
I'm the older Dan compared to
the
you.
older Dan. Oh, okay. For those out there who don't know you, the older Dan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Dan Dobrin. I'm an app architect in Google Cloud. I work on the app side of things, so to say. My focus is on applications, serverless, performance optimization, and in the last couple of years, Gen AI and applications built with Gen AI technologies.
Awesome. So yeah, we're going to get into a whole bunch of things today. I just want to remind folks, though, this is a live stream. And as my good friend Deshaun says, if you come to his house and leave hungry, that's your fault. So if you're here and you have questions, make sure you ask them. If you are not in the live stream, you can catch the replay on the Spring Developer YouTube channel. We also turn this into a podcast, so you can go take this on a run with you or in the car. You can get this wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, with that, get your questions in. We'll see if we can get them answered. We're going to kind of talk about a whole bunch of things today. I want to start with the models. There seems to be, there's this race of frontier models out there. There's so many great companies building these large language models, companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Microsoft, right? There's a lot of things happening out there. And it seems like every other week, there's a new model out. It's the greatest model ever. The benchmarks are the greatest, right? It's hard to keep up with this stuff. But I've been trying to play around with different models. And I got to say, Google Gemini Pro 2.5 is one of my kind of go-to models. It's been great at everything. I kind of use it for everything. We had you, you're a returning guest on the show. We had you, I don't know when the last time was, maybe a year ago. But
end of last year or so.
Yeah, end of last year. So over the last, I don't know, some period of time, what's been your take on the models and what's been happening at Google?
Well, you're right. There are new models coming out and there are new versions. But in the end, what matters from my perspective, and that's my personal take on things, I'll put my developer hat over many technologies from the past to what's happening now, is in the end, we have to know what we're trying to do. What is our use case? Because we might be involved, we might have for example, code assisting tool, which needs some model, but we might build applications. We might need syncing, the reasoning, an agent where we want that agent to sync. But we might also have simple tasks. We might collect information, let's say I travel, I need 7 pieces of information, but I want to summarize each one. For that, I could use a different model. Could be faster, could be more cost effective. But we always want to think about what is it that we want to do. There's no point in chasing every single model because each one brings changes and brings to us the responsibility of testing with a new model.
Yep. Yeah, there are a lot of things. I like that a lot. Don't pick a model first. Pick what you're trying to accomplish. What is the task that I'm trying to do? And different models may have pros and cons against that task, right? One of those things is a context window. One of the things I come back to Google all the time for, not that I'm sending 1 million tokens, but it has this very large context window. So as you said, if you have a task where I need to summarize really large documents or books or things like that, great use case for that, right? Cost always comes into it. When I go around and talk about AI, I talk about the context window and pricing, and I have this pricing chart, and you could say some of these other models out here are $75 for 1 million tokens in and $150 for 1 million tokens out. And then I show Google Flash is 10 cents and 40 cents per million. So it's a huge contrast. So if you're going to be taking high throughput, that's something you got to think about.
And now with the new, which is still in preview, so Gemini 2.5 Flash and Pro went live during Google I/O last month.
Yep.
And Gemini 2.5 Flash Lite is in preview at this time. That
Ooh,
is even more cost effective and faster. From the tests I ran in an agentic application, it is literally noticeable of how much faster it does for
wow.
those specific confined tasks which I'm interested in.
Yeah. So even within, even if I've kind of honed in on, say, some of the Gemini models, we have all these different options. And again, what is the task that you're trying to do? Is cost like really something that we need to take a look at? If so, some of those other models may help.
You mentioned long context windows, and of course we like that. But let's say uh, I'm in university and I take a literature class, adjacent to computer science, and I have to
Mhm.
study Shakespeare. And all of Shakespeare's works are like, I don't know, 5.5, 6 megs. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of tokens. Now you can fit them in a long context window, but should you use them all the time? So one of the great new things which came out is context caching. And not just
Mhm.
context caching, which was available. Google had this available in Gemini models for quite a bit, but it's this implicit context caching. So if you use the same type of question, you say, "Oh, here's this document. Ask this question." I'm not going to send the same document 10 or 20 times while I do my research before an exam. I want this to be implicitly cached. I can still do it explicitly, but why
Mhm.
not have it implicitly, and the costs get back to me as a user, and I don't have to do anything for it.
That's really awesome. So I've heard of this. I haven't used it before across a number of like LLM providers. So if I have like a 100-page document and I ask you a question about it, the next time I'm asking it, it's caching that document. Is it is it a huge cost savings or is it just like marginal? I don't know. I haven't looked.
It could be significant. It
Okay.
could be the majority of the cost could be, depends again on your use case, what you're trying to do. There is a
Yeah.
minimum of 1,024 for Flash and 2048 tokens for context caching to take
Yeah.
hold. But if you want, you can explicitly at the beginning of your session say, "Hey, please cache these documents for me." I was trying it the other day to figure out the problem for my car. So
Yeah.
here's the user manual.
Yeah.
Let me talk to it.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think like, all these different techniques are out there and we're all trying to like figure out when to use what. So I always think about like, kind of stuffing the prompt, adding a whole bunch of context to the prompt, or retrieval augmented generation or RAG when I need to like just pick out some things relevant to the question at task and then kind of send that. But I'm just going back to like, okay, what if I had like the Spring AI reference documentation and I had this little chat that was helping with that? Is that something, if I can cache that every single time and I'm not paying for that, however many tokens that is every single time, should I just send the entire document or should I stick that in a vector database and go through that, kind of song and dance to just pick out the relevant pieces?
It's always the timeliness of the information you have.
True.
So
Yeah.
with retrieval augmented generation, you would want this. It's super useful for your private data. You're an organization. You have your
Right.
private data. Models have a cutoff time of, I don't know, a few months ago, and
Yep.
you want to have what is there. But even there, the timeliness in RAG is how often am I going to update
Right.
my vector
Yeah. Yeah.
database? Do I
Right.
change an embedding model? I have to redo the embeddings again. So that is one thing. If I have a document, which let's say for each version of, I like to contribute to open source. I have some small contributions to the Spring ecosystem as well. There's a new version of the documentation too. I just want to have the entire HTML file and just use it every single day. Maybe here the long context window would help me, but always judge it for yourself
Yep.
and for the use case.
Um, playing around with a lot of the Gemini models. I've been using AI Studio a lot lately, and I don't know if enough people know about AI Studio. Because again, I think one thing with Google, and we've talked about this before, is there's so many different products out there. Sometimes it's a little confusing on like which one do I use. So there's this great tool called AI Studio, and I don't know what the limits are on it because I have a Gemini Pro subscription. Not the top one, but like the middle one. So I use like the consumer side of things sometimes, but sometimes I pop in AI Studio, and I know there's like a bunch of free tiers there. You can just go in and like start playing with models. And one thing I love about AI Studio is you kind of get all these other like knobs that you can turn and like test things out. So you can turn like thinking mode on. You can do like structured output, function calling. You can ground it to like Google search. And I just find AI Studio like a really incredible tool. And I'm not being paid to do so. And Dan didn't ask me to push this, so I just want to make that clear. I just find it a really useful tool. Do you find yourself using that a lot?
Yeah, in many different things, I just want to try something out quickly.
Yeah.
And I always have a window of, okay, maybe I keep too many browser windows open all the time. That's one
Yeah.
of the things. But I always like to have how about I can try something out quickly? I can try out this feature before I'm going to write maybe code.
Yeah.
And not everything is suited for writing code. Or maybe I just want some idea of how should I structure my thinking. I've different people build code for different things.
Yeah.
Some build as professional developers, day in, day out. Here's some business functionality. Others build patterns. Others build maybe demos, maybe for a conference. And I'd like to see how should I think about this particular aspect. I want to maybe learn about it. I'm not really sure, but how about help me think about it? Help me refine some ideas which are not necessarily translated into code right away.
Right.
So we always have to think that we have to use the right tool for the right use case.
Right. So thinking of that, just so anybody out there who's using Gemini, just to kind of go over some of these things, there's gemini.google.com. I consider this to be like the consumer-facing chatbot, right? So the general public who's using Gemini models, probably going to gemini.google.com. I like to think that like AI Studio, it's not just for developers, but it is kind of like a playground. And as a developer, you have this ability to kind of like turn some knobs on and off, which is a lot of fun. And then when we get into like building these applications using the Gemini models, we have something called Vertex. Can you explain like what is Vertex and like when do we use that?
So let's think we have models. So some models are proprietary, same as the Gemini model, same as maybe others from other companies, but there are also some which are open source, which you can get from Hugging Face. So Vertex is a service which would allow you to, which would run models for you, and it would give you easy, like super easy access to Gemini models. But you can also pick any of the, I think there are 10,000 that the threshold has been reached at in Hugging Face of 10,000 models. Yeah, I was reading about it the other day. And you can pick a model and you can run it in Vertex. It supports the Vertex SDK, and you have, of course, a REST API, but it supports also the open AI specification for accessing models. So you can conceivably access Gemini via two different routes, the SDK or OpenAI specification, or you can set up, I don't know, an Anthropic Claude model, set up Sonnet, enable it, and just access it.
And I've actually done a couple of videos on this. I'll add this to the show notes. But if you're using Spring AI and you want to use one of these Gemini models, you can use the Vertex SDK. So I have an example on that. And then if you just want to use an API key, it is OpenAI compatible. So you can just plug in using the OpenAI API. You can actually do it that way as well. But you guys also announced something at I/O. Was it a couple weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? No, this is a little longer.
It was May 20th.
May. Okay, so yeah, about a month ago. We have another way of doing this. Maybe not in Spring AI yet, because we are kind of tying some things up there. But there is a is it official SDK for just using an API key? What was announced?
So if we think about this, there were two ways of accessing Gemini models. Some in Vertex, you serve them from there. The other one was REST APIs in Google AI. And that was a different path to Gemini models. Now,
Yep.
one carried credentials, what we would want to do in production, secure applications with credentials tied to your project where you deploy. That's not even, I mean, it's very clear why.
Yeah.
But also as developers, you want to try it out quickly. So you want to have an API key. So a new SDK, the Gemini SDK, has been released in full GA at Google I/O in Java. It was already available in Python, but now it's GA in Java as well. And you can choose an API key, set a flag that use credentials, and provide credentials as is. And if you can do it on your machine, but then when you're going through test environments, production environments, you would be using credentials. Now, this new SDK is in GA. Many companies are already using it. However, in Spring AI, we're still all have to pitch in to get the support going for Spring AI. With Vertex, very simple because they are starters, very simple to get going. But we want to have the same thing with the unified SDK.
Yep, and that
will be the SDK going forward.
Nice. Yeah, and that was, I mean, we were working towards Spring 1.0 GA for a while, so that was kind of the priority to get that out the door. But I'm excited to see this there. So, okay.
One additional thing, the unified SDK would also have, in anticipation that Spring supports it from Spring Boot, it will have also native image support. So you will be able to build your native images, same as you build them with all the other Java client libraries, whether you PubSub or Spanner or, I don't know, cloud storage.
Cool. Okay, so we talked about a few things. Actually, I got a question here. So I'm using an API key of Gemini from Studio. Model, I'm using Flash model with same open with free of cost. I'm not sure if that's a question or not, but yes, you can go in Studio, get an API key and use that. But again, if you look at the documentation, the link from there, like that, but prior to I/O, that was like just the JavaScript or the Python SDK, and now the Java SDK is out there. So again, AI Studio, really good. I know as of like I/O, like I saw Logan Kirkpatrick kind of showing off some things there. That was kind of revamped and cleaned up, and just a very friendly way to kind of get introduced to some of those models. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is we start hearing, I don't know, probably a year ago that everything was going to move to this idea of agents, right? And so tools allowed us to kind of add some external functionality, kind of helping us avoid some of the limitations of LLMs, like getting real-time data. So we started using tools. MCP came into the picture. We started building MCP servers as a way to kind of unify those tools and allow them to be used from different clients. Then Google came along and introduced something called A2A. And I know you just told me before the show, some interesting things were announced today with that. So for those who don't know A2A, can you kind of talk about what that is and what you guys announced today?
So A2A, if we think about model context protocol, it was the idea, we had REST APIs in the past, and we had to build, we had a number of clients, we had a number of providers, and we had to build integration. And each time one would have to integrate with the other. So it was like an n times n problem. With it, when MCP came along, it became a standardized way of a server to expose not just tools, because in the enterprise, we talk primarily about tools, but it's also prompts. How would I generate correct prompts, or prompts which would be vetted high quality prompts, and also resources. I might have an older database. I might just want to expose that as a resource to a server, but it works. I like to call it like an internal versus an external type of problem. So when A2A came up with the idea, I'll use this sample, I used it at Spring I/O a month ago. So here's an app which has an agent, deals with the information about, you can do research about world capitals. And you might have a number of small agents, some with currency exchange, some access to a file archive, but maybe a tourist bureau. And this would all be confined within my domain. I can secure it, I can control it. It's generally within my domain. But what happens if I like something about Paris or Berlin or Tokyo, and I'd like to get now a ticket from for some event? But if I'm traveling, I might not know every language. How about I might use a translation agent? How should I talk to these? So A2A came about to solve this kind of problem. And it was built with a number of things in mind. One, to have an agent discovery method. Every single agent has an agent card. Think about it as a JSON file located at a well-known place. It's actually called well-known JSON,
Yep.
and it's secured by default. It supports OAuth 2, and it's built on existing standards. So if we compare them, like MCP was connecting agents to tools and APIs and prompts and resources, but A2A is on dynamic multimodal communication, and it's an open standard. It's driven by the community, and today I just read about it like maybe a couple of hours ago or so. A2A was donated by Google to the Linux Foundation, and there's
Wow,
support from all the
that's
major
awesome.
companies. That's a great thing, because everybody
Yep.
will track to the same way of building an agent, expressing an agent. How are we going to build a discovery mechanism? Should we have something like the venerable console? Here's a service. Now I can go
Yep.
and discover that. But I can even combine MCP. I can combine MCP, an MCP server, which should serve as a discovery and give my agent, give me all the agents which you can find on, I don't know, translation or on ticketing or payments or whatever this would be. It's a very clear spec, and we can see the authentication for it, the different modes. It's text or video or audio agnostic. You can use either one. And then it can provide examples and describe its route and its output mode. I'm very encouraged by this idea. Will MCP and A2A be further aligned in the future? That's maybe too early for us to know, but it creates for now an easy delineation, and the MCP world has exploded. And now we see A2A complementing it very nicely. When I'm thinking biased for enterprise applications.
Yeah, and I think this is really good, because I think when I had first heard of A2A, I was like, is this like the same thing as MCP, or is this like a competing technology? I think it's clear now that these kind of work together, right, and not strictly competing with each other.
Yeah, and it's the issue of authentication and authorization, and the idea of discoverability.
Yeah.
If every agent has, I know where the agent card is, that gives me possibilities to build things. Maybe I have an internal discovery mechanism. Maybe there might be a public registry. I shouldn't be hindered by either one.
Right. So in your example, maybe we've built a bunch of different MCP servers in our organization, and then we want to take advantage of some agents outside of our organization. How do we get started with A2A? Like, what is it? Like, if I wanted to discover other agents, how do I do that?
Well, for the time being, if we think about it, until such registries become available and
Yes.
become well known. If I were in an enterprise, it might be, for example, simple because I control both consumers and servers. A large org
Yep.
where I might have a few A2A servers in different domains, and that would be simpler. I could provide all these the URLs for all of them and the locations for the agent card, and then everybody could discover them. How will that play out in public internet-wide areas? That remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But for sure, these will emerge,
Now,
same as many others.
I'm asking because I see on the left here, for those not at home, we're looking at a couple slides. On the left, the MCP no dedicated auth. I've actually built out some examples of MCP servers in Spring using OAuth 2. So like what happens when like my MCP server has OAuth and then 8A has OAuth? Do those kind of like crash, or maybe do you not define OAuth at the agent level then?
With MCP, if we think about it, when we look at, and I'm aware of the work which Daniel did, and
Yes.
the
Yes.
Spring security, and he published some great materials on it.
Yep.
So it's the responsibility of your application, and you can handle it at your server level. So if you do
Okay.
that at your server level, then it's like any kind of web app where you would deal with OS, right? It would be
Okay.
very simple.
Yep.
However, if you go on to the A2A side, you will have a standard way of where your tokens would be. So it would give you a different way of approaching it. Otherwise, you're hoping that this is properly implemented. In here, it kind of like tells you, there's this location, this is where you should expect that.
Yep. I just want to make sure everybody out there is clear. As we start putting these agents out in the world, we still have to think of security. So I don't know that I care where you're doing it. Just make sure you're doing it somewhere. So let's say that I create an MCP server and I have this now, this kind of agent, and I put it out into the world. You're saying from an A2A perspective, what goes into like building an agent now? Is it just this? I'm glad you're showing this again. So there's like a location for a well-known agent. This describes what this agent is like capable of, where it is, like how to call it, that kind of thing.
All its capabilities, and for an agent to be A2A compliant, that well-known JSON file needs to be in a publicly accessible location, always in your server.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, it's just not compliant to that specification. Now, how you're going to implement it, you can take simply the spec and generate a client and a server. There are efforts underway and there are different implementations already, which you can just use it as a simple SDK, same as the Spring team built MCP and donated it to Anthropic. You will be able to use it and build your application regardless of the framework or the integration you will be using. What will be interesting to explore is not everything is synchronous we build cloud apps. Now we're building AI apps in the cloud. So since we learn, continue. But a lot of applications are event-driven applications. That is still, there's still some thinking into this. How should we express this? Can I just take an A2A compliant message, put it in a cloud event, CNCF, standard, and do that? How would I do discovery? Because now the mechanism is not an HTTP endpoint. It might be a topic or a queue. So how, or maybe even some object storage. How will we do that? So that part of the spec would require some minor additions, not removals, but additions to handle also the event-driven space. That's very interesting to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, we're the world of AI is moving so fast these days. We're all just kind of playing around with a lot of these tools, finding out like what works in what scenario. Again, best tool for the right job, right? And I get to work on this stuff every day, and I'm still trying to like get caught up on everything. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on today, was just to kind of talk through some of these things. I follow you, I follow Logan Kilpatrick, I follow our good buddy Guillaume LaForge, and even that, just trying to keep up with you three and everything that's going on. There's so much going on. So did you just do a talk with Guillaume at Google I/O?
No, we did a talk at Google Cloud Next in April.
Cloud Next. Okay,
we
cool.
We did one on building Gen AI applications in the Java space and deploying them in GCP.
Cool.
Now there are so many new things in Java. now that there's an SDK for the unified SDK, it gives you a lot of possibilities of
Yeah.
building applications. So Java did not have that. Python did, but now
Yeah.
it's you have a lot more choice, especially for the enterprise space where you don't want to relearn things. You want to
Yeah.
use skills and existing code and just
Yeah.
add the new things rather than replace.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you talk to a lot of customers in the enterprise space, and I want to hear your thoughts on this because I've been one of my main things over the last like maybe year or so has been talking to customers and like I just take this for granted that I know this, but like talking to customers and saying like, yes, your Java developers are AI developers. Like I had a customer come to me and say like we're replatforming our entire Java team onto Python to take advantage of AI. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like we are not. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with Python, but like for the longest time, they were there to build these large language models. They are the data scientists, the machine learning team. Those are still needed. But in the enterprise, we are consumers of these large language models. And you could do that from any language these days, and especially Java, who's well in the enterprise. So do you hear a lot of those same conversations where you're trying to just educate them on what's possible?
Oh yeah, initially, if we think about it, when this world of building Gen AI applications exploded,
Mm-hmm.
there was Python. Sure, Python is the language of AI ML, but
Yeah.
Java is the language of the enterprise, same as maybe .NET.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like super widely used across the
Yeah,
entire spectrum.
for sure.
And the first question which always comes up is, do I actually have to change the entire stack, or can I just add two things? Because I might have an application where I collect some information. All I need is a quick summarization. So I always use the example: Gemini's adoption is driven by business needs, not by
Yeah,
technological aspects. You don't use AI to use AI. I
right.
need to have this feature. And if my stack is already on Spring Boot or could be another framework, it's running on GKE or serverless Cloud Run, I want to use that investment. My pipelines,
Mm.
I want to use that. I want to add only the functionality which I need. And by doing this next question is tooling supported? So not all SDKs were right away available.
Yeah.
Last year at the Google Cloud Next 24, the Spring AI team and we showed the Spring AI for the first time in Google Cloud, and we were building function calling like the week before Google Cloud Next. Look how far we got in a year and a few
Yeah.
months. So tooling is catching up. Coding assisting tools like Gemini Code Assist or as many others as you can find are connecting to Gemini models. Java support is there, and now there's this sort of like I would say calm returns to
Yeah.
development teams because now they see tooling emerging. Everything is still early days. I'm
Yeah.
sure in 3 or 6 months, or if we talk by Christmas, I'm sure there's going to be several new features catering to the enterprise developer. But yes, there
Yeah.
was a concern of like tooling not being available. And the idea is not that you change the stack, but if I don't have the tools, what should I do? When will the
Right.
tools catch up? But they catch up at a much faster pace than we anticipated.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, especially at the enterprise level, I get a lot of questions like, can you give me some examples of like things that we could build with AI? And I think it goes back to what you said. It's like, I think you're asking the wrong question. Like, don't just use AI to use AI. Like, what are the things that we can help automate those processes within your organization? Like, have your engineers or product managers kind of jot some things down over the next couple of weeks. Like, here are the things that we seem to be doing over and over again that we could probably automate or make it a little bit easier. So yeah,
Or
it
make
goes
it
back to
faster
task.
or so on. And things which we did not have before.
Yeah.
Can we solve them? Let's say many times we retrieve large documents. And many organizations have like from terms of and conditions to whatnot. And let's be honest, we don't read the terms of conditions in most of the time. But do I want to have a simple way to retrieve these documents, large as they might be, and summarize them, or
Right.
extract main points? Give me the top 10 bullet points. What should I learn? Or what has changed from if I compare these two? What has changed? How could that semantically affect me, so to say?
Right.
What's the meaning of what has changed?
Right.
And these are easy things where we get a lot of benefit for not much effort versus what we were doing before.
Right. And what we were doing before is like we may have like an FAQ in a database, but it's very kind of stale, right? With generative AI, you're allowed to look at those terms and conditions, those policy documents, and generate all kinds of different content from that. So pretty cool. Now, one of those use cases that come up in especially in the enterprise when we're talking to them, is that's great for my policy documents, my terms and conditions, that kind of thing. But what about all of those documents that I don't want to be sharing with things like, OpenAI or Google, right? I have some private documents that I only want to make available to my customers. In that scenario, instead of using one of the proprietary models, you can use some open source models. And Google happens to have one of my favorite open source models, which is Gemma 3. I run that locally a lot for just some, proof of concepts and quite frankly, teaching it to others. But you can use Gemma 3 in Spring AI, a couple different routes. Have you played around with any of the open source models?
At Next, we showed Gemma 3 deployed in Cloud Run serverless. So what if I want to have, maybe I don't have the resources of running it on my own machine, or I don't want to run it. I can use Ollama or various other ways of accessing a local model. Sure, I can do that very quickly. But what if I want to deploy a model in a serverless environment and pay as you go? So we deployed, it's a one-line deployment. You can deploy now your models in Cloud Run. Sure, you can deploy them in GKE in Kubernetes, but in Cloud Run, and you start it, you might use it for a minute or 5 or 20, and that instance will slowly be evicted once you don't use it. For many small tasks, let's say you have an agent, again, breaks down into small, use an LLM-based agent. You give it a goal, you want it to create a syncing process, create maybe 20 questions it might ask, and then go and ask them via RAG. But in the end, I want to summarize each one. I don't need Gemini Pro for that. I can parallelize and run maybe a few requests against Gemma, for example, whether it runs locally or whether I deploy it in Cloud Run. And now they're like super fast and a great alternative. Again, depends what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool because I suspect other developers out there are doing this too. Like, oh, I have all these ideas of like things I want to build, but like, I don't know if I want to build this thing, put it out in the public, and have this, huge cloud bill to service this little like pet project that I'm working on. But as you said, like, I don't need a server running 24/7 that's taking high throughput. I may just have an agent that I want to spin up, take a request, return a response. That's a perfect way of doing so. And if I have like things I don't want to share with some of the frontier models, run an open source model. I didn't know that you can run it on Google Cloud like that. So that's something I'm going to tinker with soon.
And if you think about it, you can start with Ollama model and download your model within that instance. Takes a few seconds. It's not starting like a native Java image, but it's an issue of seconds, not minutes. You can use that, or you can build an image, which you can then use to deploy. Now, if you have agents which you run in a serverless environment and they're not as time sensitive, they can wait 5 seconds or 10 seconds until the model is up. You can spin up your agent, and you can get your response from the model. Again, you have choices.
Something else I saw on one of your slides. Again, I'm trying to get educated here today, Dan. We have A to A. There's also ADK. What is that?
So with ADK, if we think about this, with ADK, we can start building an agent very simple. Here is a task. We can say that's an agent. Go and do this. The simplest agents from like 2 years ago were like, here's an LLM, here's a prompt, I get the response.
Wait, before I go forward, I always like asking people this because I get different answers, and rightfully so. Like, how do you define an agent?
I define an agent by it is a service, an application, however you want to call it. An agent should be, you give it a goal, and it should independently and autonomously take that goal, decompose it into whatever task it has to do, and go and fulfill that task. It would have to interact with an environment, collect feedback from humans or from other systems, and in a feedback loop, work towards achieving that goal.
Cool.
In comparison to a workflow, we specify precisely what we want. I have an image, I want to enhance it, I want to validate it that it's a safe image, not inappropriate. Then I might want to change its resolution and write it into a cloud storage. Great. Perfect. Use services, that's fine, it's a workflow. But there's also this combination of an LLM-based agent where I'll give you a goal. Please research the city of Berlin, the origin, the population, 7 different things, and maybe give me a brochure.
Yeah.
I don't specify, decompose it in 7 things. It might generate 20 questions. It will address each one and continue until it gets that response. A workflow would be very clear, but what if I have a combination of these two? So I might have a REST API. I might have simple LLM frameworks, which are helping me access models, like the Gemini SDK, MCP SDKs. Many of these SDKs would come into play. Then we have the lower level orchestration frameworks, Spring AI, LangChain4j, there might be others. And then we have agent frameworks, which would help us build agent and coordinate the work of agents. Of course, we can have no-code platforms. But if we think about it, an agent has kind of like there's 3 types of agent. The LLM-based agent, they reason, they use tools, they transfer information, but there are also workflow agents where I might have a set of operations which I know I want to achieve, 3 different goals, but I also want each one to leave the agent to set that goal for that agent and deal with it as it sees fit. So now, a combination where I'm orchestrating this.
Would an LLM still be involved in like a workflow agent?
Yes, of course. So in each one, so we can have sequential agents, have agents which I'm calling in one after the other, or some which are separate tasks which I can execute in parallel, or looping one. What that agent does, it could be, I set it a goal, please achieve that goal and come back to me and report it. And then there are the fully custom ones in which you might build in code via custom logic, any combination of what you would need to do. So ADK as a framework, which is available in Java, it is not in GA, it's at version 0.1, it was launched during Google I/O. It has this idea that you can define a root agent, and it might have a number of child agents and tools which could help you build your agentic flow. And it is open source. Open source, you can support Gemini models and other LLMs with the light LLM. You can deploy them in any kind of environment, your machine, like locally. You can deploy them on serverless on Kubernetes or on Google Agent Engine, which is an engine to run agents. And you can use MCP and A2A for tool calling or prompts, but you can also have multi-agent scenarios. Agent could be in different domains. You're based in a different location than me, and we could use A2A to have this conversation, for example. And so the idea would be combining and giving the ability to to a development team to set up potentially a workflow of different agents, and each agent would run in their own way. It could talk to different models, integrate in various ways, and again, available in Java as well.
And so I think I saw, again, from some of the posts that I've seen from Guillaume, the way that you define an agent in ADK, you basically are saying, here's an agent, here's like the prompt that you're going to use. Maybe it's a system level prompt. You are a really good writer. You're going to write you're a good technical writer that writes on various AI topics, whatever. And then you give it some tools too, right? Like if it needs tools to like search the web to like get access to like the latest info, it has that tool. And so then maybe you define a bunch of agents like that, right? So you're a writer, now you're an editor. Like please edit this piece and make sure that it's like grammar is good, spelling's good. And then maybe you have another one that does, hey, make sure there's nothing, we're not leaking any credentials about proprietary stuff. So you can kind of like combine all of those things.
Yeah.
You're just defining those in like code using Java then?
Yeah, and you can also have access to tools. Let's say you want to augment your request with web search. You want to ground it with web search. So there is a tool available for that, for example, as well. Or you might now be able to run, maybe I want to translate this document into languages. Or I want to use, if I'm in a financial services operation, I want to go to a credit rating history, and there are several of them, get individual responses if somebody creditworthy or not, and then make a decision on that.
Speaking of tools, I don't remember which one it was, but I think I saw in one of Guillaume's demos, there's like an interface for ADK that he spun up, and it was written in Spring. I was like, yes.
It is based in Spring. It's a Spring Boot application,
yes,
which would allow you to start this up, point to the folder where your agents are. The requirement is that your agents extend base agent, so obviously, and it will find them. Then it will be able to show you step by step.
Cool. We do have a question here. Let's see if we can answer it. How would one debug a flow orchestrated by ADK agent? Does it have some tracing functionality to know the inputs and outputs of each agent?
So you will be in the UI. You can trace each execution step.
Nice.
It will show you that. I was just trying to see if I have the application running somewhere.
Oh, cool. Let me know if you do, and I'll bring it back.
Yeah,
oh, there we are.
That's not it. That's not it. Well, whenever you're looking for something quickly, you're never finding it.
No, it's okay. Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah, so you can run each one, and then
it is. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, continue.
Observability is such a huge piece to like every application we build, but I've been trying to kind of stress that point when I go around and talk about AI and Spring AI in general. It's like when we start putting these applications into the wild, we need some observability into these. So on the Spring AI side, like how many tokens are we taking in per request? What's the max input and output tokens? What's the time to serve, that kind of thing. So I like this question. Whenever you're doing anything that we're putting into production, you should try to figure out exactly how you get some insights into what's going on.
Yeah. So if we look at this, so this is the sample. So this is a Spring Boot application. You can pick up different agents, and I can say what is the time in Toronto where I am based. So it will tell me, and now I can follow. The first thing, it's a multi-tool agent. So this has two agents. One is for getting the weather. One is for getting the current time. So the first step is, and here is the invocation. I'm going to call this particular tool to get the time, and here's the city where I'm interested in. The next one would be, and you see it visually, I get the response back. The current time is 1:53 p.m. Eastern time. It also gives me the status. The last thing is, here is the response, which you see on the screen. I can, on the other hand, ask what is the temperature in New York, so that what is the weather, let's say. So I can look at the weather for New York, I can get a response, and the weather is 25 degrees Celsius or 77 Fahrenheit. And then I get the response.
I wish I was in New York. It's like 92 degrees here right now.
Yeah, in Toronto, it's right
hot.
now 36 Celsius. So I don't know how much that is in Fahrenheit, probably 100 or so.
Hot.
So you can run these agents, and you can also loop through different agents. There are different ways of orchestrating it. This is very handy that you can try it out also in streaming mode or not,
Nice.
which we might be building. Maybe not all of us build streaming applications. It depends on our use case, and you can try this out. Then how you integrate this in your Spring or any other framework application, that is in the end up to you and how you deploy.
Cool.
Of course, you would want in a cloud environment to connect to cloud logging and be able to trace that. That is not a given. The things which we learned in the past of building and running in the cloud, they're not going to waste. That knowledge is inherently, we're just enhancing it.
Yep. Cool. Well, you've answered a lot of my questions today, especially when it comes to like ADA, ADK, and different models. Those are some things I wanted to talk to you about. Anything else going on that we didn't get to cover? Anything else on your mind? What are you working on these days?
It's quite interesting now that unified SDK is out. There are a lot of integrations which we have to build. So sure, majority of my work is related to customer work and applications which customer build. But personally, I'm looking at the integrations of each one of them in ADK, supporting Spring AI, building native image applications. Fast startup and low latency startup applications in the cloud don't go away in the AI world. We still need them. Maybe even more so if we want to have a responsive application. That sub-second startup, which is eminently achievable, translates into here as well. There's a question to improve agent functionality, implement A2A support in Spring AI. I think the first question would be Spring ADK supporting Spring AI. Because if we think about it, ADK has a way of defining your tools, but nothing stops us from registering regular tools like with Spring AI, as long as they implement a base agent. So we can do that. So I would say the first thing is to have support, for example, in ADK for something like Spring AI. Now, when it comes to lower level protocols like A2A or MCP, I think in the end it's a two-set problem. One is building an agnostic SDK, which I can use whether I write a simple Java app or whether I integrate it with frameworks. When it comes to A2A support in Spring AI, the support will be probably on building Spring Boot starters to help a developer out quickly, wire things in easily. So it's going to be same as MCP has. It's complementary rather than being part of the protocol.
Cool. All right. I think that's all I got. Dan, for people who, well, I always say, if you want to be found on the internet, where can people find you?
Well, LinkedIn, Twitter, different conferences.
Ooh, do you have
I
anything
was
coming up?
yes. This week there's Toronto Tech Week, and
Ooh,
as part of that, I will speak to a Java audience, and we're going to take piece by piece what it is that we want to build in an agent. So I might need the long context, I might need the RAG, I might
yeah,
need the web search, and then how do I build MCP? And not everything is tools. I want to focus
yeah,
on like sampling and prompts and other things. How do we build A to A? The next thing I'd like to contribute to some of the many initiatives, and I think that would be a helpful thing for developers as well. I'm
for
open
sure.
to collaborate with anybody, just
Yeah,
to so that we can bring all these technologies together and make it easier for developers. In the fall,
yeah.
it's a bit early to say what other conferences. I just gave a talk on serverless Toronto the other week, like 2 weeks
Oh,
ago,
nice,
where I was comparing like A2A and MCP, but how do we build that for a serverless environment?
nice.
Starting from the
Is
question,
that
can I actually do
uh,
it? It is
I
available.
is that one? Is there a recording of that talk anywhere? I would love to
It
watch
is.
it.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
cool.
is.
If you can shoot that over to me, I'll get that in the show notes as well because
Yeah.
selfishly, I'd like to watch that. So, cool. Well, I'm sure summer kind of winds down travel for me, so as most people. But I think as we get into like late summer, early fall, I'm sure you and I will be in the same place again. The Dans will be back together.
Hope so. Let's see. You travel a lot more than I do, but work is what unites us.
Yep, yep. Well, again, I want to thank you. I know we've been trying to get back together on this for a while now, so I can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your day and educating all of us on all the things happening at Google. And I'm not just saying this, I say this on Twitter all the time. I'm a big fan of, for a long time, Google was kind of like, I don't know what Google's doing over there with, some of the models and some of the products out there. But man, over the last year, you guys have really like hit it out of the park. And I'm a big fan of a lot of things you guys are doing. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. It evolves and it will evolve faster and faster.
Yep. Yep. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for your
Thank you.
questions. And we will see you in the next one.
Thank you.